Should Jerod Mayo be fired on Monday? That's where we started today, Bert. Should he stay or should he go?
Yeah, so I went from do it if Vrabel is available to now I'm all options are on the table because that was so bad. And that performance and to come out of it to look that way. And I'm almost the weird thing is I'm almost now torn on the Vrabel thing because I think this organization has systemic issues that go beyond the head coach that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
That if you just go and have another sham of a coaching search, another sham of a GM search, and you just bring in a guy that there may be issues here that do not get fixed because you did that, because you did not put yourself through a full process again. And
they're bringing him back.
I mean, here's the thing is they still are set up the way they were when Bill was the coach. They need more people. They need more departments. They need to modernize the entire operation. This is a place that was based around the way one person wanted to run it. That one person is not here anymore. They need to spend and spend and spend to build out their operation, to get it up with what the Eagles are doing, with what the Ravens are doing, with what the most forward-thinking organization, the Rams, the Niners, what the best organizations in football are doing. And what I've heard so many times from the people who went into the Lions, right? So there's a good example, right? The guys who came into the Lions, Brad Holmes was coming from the Rams. And they felt like they had to build out so many things because they were way too small, and we need to have this and this and this and this. And if we don't have it, we're going to be behind everybody else. Sports science, analytics, all these different things. This is not a one-person problem. Jerod has not done a good job this year. Let me put that out there, right? First of all, but
correct. We all
ownership.
But some people can't admit it still. So
the crafts don't let them skate on this. They deserve a healthy piece of the blame, and I think it starts. It starts with the way that you set this up in the first place, because you do not put a succession plan in place without the blessing of your head coach. And they did. They put that in place, and it was without the full blessing and ownership of the head coach.
Forget blessing. Was there knowledge?
There was knowledge. I've heard there was knowledge. But I don't think it came with with his blessing, and it wasn't his idea. And
that's blessing.
Let me ask you this real quick there. Bill knowing how much work over the course of his career he got to that point with what he had to put in and how he had to put staffs together. Do you think if there was a succession plan in place and it was McDaniels, that Bill would have agreed? Because he's been there, he's gone, he's come back. I could get him ready for the next phase. Could Bill sit there a year ago and say he's not going to be ready to go? I can't get him.
Yes. Who would Archbishop Belichick give the blessing to?
Who would he give the blessing to? Say yes.
But if you were going to do it that way, you either do it that way where you have full the head coach has full ownership of the succession plan, right?
Sure.
And in that case, what's happening is over the course of the last couple of years, you are slowly moving responsibility over. So by the time the head coach gets the new head coach is in. There's been a baton passed. This wasn't a baton passing. There was fractures on that coaching staff. There was issues internally. There were people who didn't like each other. There were factions inside that group in 2023. And that was the runway that you were creating for an inexperienced head coach who's not ready for the job.
Yeah, this was baptism by fire. But
that is on ownership.
Absolutely.
That is on ownership.
Without a doubt.
And
now the second part, though, what you're talking about with the sort of the resources and the build out and all of this, is that more coaching and football, or are we talking front office? What are you referring to? Because I heard you talk about front office stuff.
I think it's both.
Okay.
It's both.
The front office, now I'm not saying you're wrong, because I sure, great. Yeah. They should always invest more. They should have a bigger staff, bigger front. Great. I'm all on board. Do you need a bigger front office to figure out that you should just take Ladd McConkey? Do you need a bigger front office to know that you shouldn't take Baker and Polk? Okay. Because any moron could do that. You want a Michael Jackson reference? You just mentioned Michael Jackson. Bubbles, the chimpanzee, could have taken Ladd McConkey.
Were you banging the drum in April for that?
What's that?
Were you banging the drum in April for that?
No.
Is that what you're saying? Like it was an easy
No, but I
call?
understand what you're saying.
Oh,
But like,
that was a name that was actually talked about.
it was talked about, but I
linked
think
to the past.
Bubbles could have picked Drake May.
It was
like
it was talked about, but it's not like it was this easy call. What I am saying, well, here's what.
But it's because they didn't have a bigger staff that they made that
No,
move?
it's because they believed in Pop Douglas and he's your slot and we need an outside guy. That's what they believed in.
Look. Here's the bottom line: is like when you're talking about making mistakes in the draft, right? Making mistakes in free agency. The best organizations aren't ones that like lean too hard into analytics. They're the ones that have the most guardrails. And I remember talking with the Ravens general manager Eric DaCosta about this. And they are so invested, and they invest in so many different ways in their football operation, right? They actually do not subscribe to PFF or any of the analytics services. You know what they do? They have their own like system built. So like they have everything, like their entire operation, like so much of it is like we have our own analytics department and all of it is internal and we have our own way of doing this.
That's how Bill did it with Ernie, and they had their own system of grading players though that way.
And
like
then I ask Eric, I'm like, okay, like, well, what does this do for you? He's like, well, analytics don't make decisions for us, but they create guardrails. So if I'm making an exception by drafting this player this high, I may draft him anyway, but I at least want to know that I'm making that exception, right? So if you're doing things like that, you're creating these sorts of guardrails, you're less likely to make the mistakes. Again, I'm not saying that it automatically means you won't make mistakes.
I think they should hire
the
the draft magazines off the rack at 7-Eleven. And we'll go from, and that'll be the guardrail.
Jalen Polk was a really good player last year. Like, don't act like it was obvious, Beetle. That's revisionist.
Stay and make the pick. Stay and just draft the best receiver available, and they end up with Lab McConkey.
They would have taken. I believe they would have taken Polk over McConkey.
Okay.
At 34.
Well, that's why they're bad at this. That's why they're not good. They can't identify talent, and they've done a very
Polk
poor
was
job.
a really
two
good
different
player
receivers.
last year.
Yeah.
Do you think McConkey would?
Bert, most guys getting drafted in the second round were good players last year. That's why they're getting drafted in the second round.
What kind of year would Lad McConkey have here?
You know, I heard Barth saying this the other day, and he said, oh, he'd be terrible here the way Polk is. And I just think this is the sorry excuse making for the Patriots.
Watch the way he runs routes.
They don't have enough in the front office. They don't have a way to develop these players. Like, give me a break.
I'm not saying no. I think it's 100% accurate. All right, you have like the people who have come here from other organizations. I can tell you this 100%. Their first reaction when they walk in that building is, "Where are all the people?"
I'm not telling you you're wrong. I'm just saying that it's a sorry excuse as we get to the stage of the year when guys get fired. That's what this is.
No.
When NFL Network, by the way, great job, Ross Tucker and NFL Network on this game. They absolutely destroyed the Patriots for 3 hours.
Yep.
It was magical to watch that go on any NFL broadcast. It doesn't happen very often. And they even went so far as to say, look at how stupid Eliot Wolf is. Look at this trade. And they highlighted the trade and what the Patriots got and what the Chargers got. I thought that was a nice touch on Saturday. That really was. They really hammered the point home.
Beetle,
and I think this is what you hear now. I mean, where are all the people? I don't know.
I'm going to bring this back.
Pick up the draft magazine, guys.
I'm bringing this back around for you, though.
Fine.
It's like what I'm bringing this back around to is if you're like, you guys know, like I think Vrabel is a top 10 coach in the league. I 100% would hire Mike Vrabel.
How do you not go get him?
100. Here's the thing though. I would not hire him at the expense of going through a full process. I would not hire him at the expense of taking a full-on look at my football operation.
Good point. Excellent point.
I would not. And that's what I'm afraid of. If it's just. It's a one-person problem, right, which is what they did last year. Mm-hmm. If it is just, we're going to walk, this is a one-person problem. Jerod Mayo is a train wreck, and we are just going to replace him, then that's an issue.
Oh, I'm clearing house if I'm the Crafts. I'm firing everybody, and I'm conducting a real search.
Right.
I'm going to do the real search, and if that leads them to Mike Vrabel,
right,
then it leads them to Mike Vrabel.
And if you do it
but you don't just fire Jerod and hire Mike Vrabel. That doesn't.
Yeah,
right. It would be better.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't solve the root problem here.
Are you going to be able to do that with Vrabel being a hot candidate like that to have a prolonged search?
And you have to be willing that might be the expense of it. Like that may be the expense of it if you do not move fast, because I think
that's the problem.
If the Raiders make a change,
should be working now.
There's a lot of buzz out there that he's going to wind up with the Raiders.
So what you said, though, was at one point you said fire Mayo if you can get Vrabel, but at this point you're saying fire Mayo and do it right.
Right.
Which is what I would do.
If you're going to do it, like I just don't think this is a one-person problem. Like Sunday was eye-opening that it came just less than 2 weeks after the Cardinal debacle. The Bills thing, I think you can throw out the window as the Bills kind of hitting a bump after they played the Niners and the Lions and the Chiefs and the who was the other one? The 4 teams in a succession that were all like
Detroit. Oh, you said Lions.
Yeah, there were 4 in a row that they played that were all
good teams.
Yeah. Like
sounds like Bert's firing Mayo. That's my takeaway from this segment. Sounds like he's canning the head coach. Everybody's doing. Even Zoe today is everyone's canning the head coach today. Zoe. Everyone's firing everybody.
But I like my
I didn't say can.
my whole
you better
thing
make
is,
sure you got Vrabel locked up.
my whole thing is like
I'm not bringing in a coordinator. That's what I'm not doing.
You need to take a massive look at your organization and the way you do business because again, for 25 years this was set up in the way that it worked for one person, and that person is irreplaceable. You cannot replace Bill Belichick. So it's time for them to take a larger look at the organization. Whether they keep Mayo or not, like that is necessary.
Is Eliot Wolf keeping his job?
My leader.
In your again, fantasy world of being the owner of the Patriots, you're Robert and Jonathan. What are you doing with him?
Tom Curran put me onto this that I think is not the worst idea in the world, which is like having the football overlord
guy. You're bringing in Pioli or something.
Yeah, I don't
just hire qualified people and stop with the Band-Aids.
Which, again, like that's the question. I think it's really hard, and you guys are going to kill me for saying this. You can't judge a general manager on one offseason.
Yes, you can.
You just cannot do it. Like, if you want to go back and look at John Lynch's first offseason.
What about 5 offensive linemen?
San Francisco, like the
Even Zoe's firing Wolf today. Wow.
Right. So but when here's the thing.
You just stop putting words in my mouth.
Well, it's what you're doing. It's like you want to keep throwing all the fuel on the fire. Like we're over here.
No,
I got my fire burning. This is the fire everybody fire.
I think it's
and Zoe's like,
personal.
offensive line sucks. Fire him. I mean, I didn't say fire him. I just said the offensive line sucks.
Like bottom line, players play the game. Like they're more the issues are more personnel related to me. But I know Bill effed them on it, and I understand what you're saying.
You cannot judge a GM on one offseason.
It's just
that's not a rule. That you just made up that rule. That's not an actual rule. The rest of us can and will and
it's
are.
Stupid though. It's just stupid.
Okay, call me stupid.
No, but if you look at John,
I didn't draft Polk.
Look at John Lynch's first draft in San Francisco. The first 4 rounds were a tire fire. It was Solomon Thomas 3rd overall. It was Reuben Foster who had every issue in the world, and they all blew up on him. He took a running back that nobody thought he should take in the 4th round. That guy washed the league. Now, where he wound up hitting in that draft was with Kittle in the 5th round, and that didn't manifest itself until later. So I've covered the league for long enough to know that there are ups and downs, and a good draft in 3 or 4 years winds up being like 3 long-term pieces, and it's just really hard to judge any.
You think they got those pieces in this draft?
Yeah, I think they got one.
Oh, yeah, everyone knows the one. Again, Bubbles could have made that pick. Conkey would have made the pick of Drake May at 3.
So are you completely out on Jalen Polk? Like he'll never be anything?
Yes.
Okay.
I think most receivers now, and I'm not saying that to be flippant, I'm just saying most receivers, they show you in year 1, even if they don't have big statistical years, they show you there's real ability there.
How does he not get an attempt thrown his way on a really, really bad team?
They show you their ability in some way, shape, or form, and you see it. And you say, okay, this guy's got it, and he's going to be a good player. And he may not put up a huge number
I'm serious.
A lot of them do put up big numbers right away now, the good ones.
Yeah.
But even if you don't put up huge numbers, you see the talent, you see the ability, you see that they get it and understand it, and that they can play in the league. It's not there with this player.
No.
Board. Ask Zoe.
Zoe
watches it more closely than anyone.
I laughed at the McCone lookalike, the tight end from Georgia, that went to Vegas, and he's having a hell of a year. It's almost like rookie of the year.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
You tell me, you could at least. You might not look great, but you should be able to get on the field and get a ball thrown your way. He can't do that.
I would say this for any general manager, though. Like the general managers who've been fired after a year, and it has happened before, have had issues outside of football. Like you generally don't fire a general manager after a year because you cannot tell what what's going to become of their 5-year plan, or their 10-year plan with one off season. It's not excusing it. It doesn't look good right now. There's no question about that, right?
My book out. Just put it on the table. If anyone wants to see.
But if you're going to bring in Vrabel and keep Eliot Wolf, like isn't that
probably
dysfunctional?
No, but that's what I'm saying is like if you,
I don't know how you fire one and not the other.
No, and that's the thing is like I don't believe in half measures. So if you're going to get rid of Vrabel or Mayo, then he may not deserve it. But I'd understand why you would go for a clean sweep. And that's again like people here are seeing the way a lot of other teams live now, and it's like after a year of this, like you're done with it. Okay, that's fine, but what's the answer? And I think it's complex in that like Vrabel is definitely the best option out there, but do you fix some of the systemic things that go beyond the head coach if Vrabel is coming in here, right? Or are you just plugging in one person and saying a lot of the other stuff we're doing was right all along?
No, he's bringing his whole staff.
No, that's a Band-Aid.
You wipe the whole staff.
No,
out
he
if
is.
you're
No,
bringing it.
You got to blow it out. Blow it up. Do it right.
He is, but his ownership, if you're doing that, and you're like, fine, give him the power, but you're still saying, like, in the back of your head, this is a one-person problem. We're not the problem. Like, Jerod Mayo is the problem. That's what I'd have an issue with, because I do think, like, because Tom and Bill held this thing up at such a high level for so long, I do you think it's fair to say ownership's lost its fastball?
Sure.
Okay, so
Oh my God, fastball.
I mean, they don't have a pitch period.
They're in
right
single
now.
A right now. They're on the injured list.
So
are you kidding me? They haven't. Bert, they haven't done anything right to make their team better.
So I think
in years.
I think that there's a real need to look inward here. And
they make John Henry look good.
Yeah, I mean, I just think like there's a real.
I got Milliken laughing. That one got Milliken going. Yeah, it's been years.
Yep, and there's a need to look inward here, and I think it's look. I would say the same thing to them that I have said over the last few weeks about the Bengals, which like the Bengals, I think there's a lot of pressure on the Bengals this offseason to get it right because of Joe Burrow and because you have the quarterback, and the Bengals are very archaic in the way they do things, and I think that they need to fix a lot this offseason. I think the Patriots are sort of in that category. I'm not saying they're as bare bones as the Bengals are operationally, but I think that they are in the bottom half of the league when it comes to how they run their football operation. And that goes beyond one person. That means you need to update a lot of things. That means you need to change a lot of things. And people in the inside the football operation know it. And I think you have to start listening to them, whether it's the guys who are in charge right now or someone else. You need to add infrastructure because you are operating now in a 2005 sort of way 20 years later.